So no Doug tonight.
No notes.
Laura.
About Laura.
Or she was gonna be,
She is.
she was in the.
Fantastic.
So it's the Madison Metro folks, the same people who are at the hearing.
It's a memory here.
Who is it? Metro?
Sean. Jason Justin.
Hi, Laura.
Sean is from.
Madison.
Okay, great.
Hello. Oh, yeah. He was at
We've
the
met
hearing.
Sean. Hello again.
Hello.
Sean.
Well, you have to stop meeting like that.
Yeah.
Only kidding. Are you not feeling well, Laura?
Oh,
Yes,
thank you.
yes.
Oh, I am fine. I'm in my bedroom because I have some guests here from out of town.
Oh, okay.
They're making a salad while I meet with you.
Oh,
Oh,
And my apologies, folks, if I'm a little attentive to my cell phone. I'm picking my sister up at the airport tonight at 8:20, so it'll just be close to
Got
when we
it.
get done.
Hopefully we don't do that.
Oh, yeah, that'll be 2 hours. What did I say?
Time to start.
5:30.
Okay. I would like to call the meeting to order. Can you record? Or are we?
It's recording.
Okay, great. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Transit Commission of the City of Monona. Mark, you,
Yeah.
let's see, Wednesday, December 13th.
Just don't do this.
You have the roll.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think the agenda minutes are in.
okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
Moved.
I'll second.
And I have a second, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any changes?
I would just change Chair Bernstein to Alder Bernstein.
Okay. Okay, any other corrections, changes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Great, the minutes pass, that brings us to the appearance section. Is there anyone here that wishes to appear? There's no one here in the room. Is there anyone on screen that wishes to appear this evening?
okay.
No,
Okay, great, with no appearances, we'll close the appearance section. And we'll move to, we'll move to 5A, which is unfinished business, of which there is none, which takes us to new business. Which is discussion of Metro 3C. C3 and the bus stops. So with that, we have Sean from Metro with us. Sean, could you start by walking through the two-way C3 route? In particular, like, where does it originate? You know, what's the exact route? Like, pretend you have a little Matchbox car going down the route. Or Matchbox bus going down the route. You know, the timing of the route, number of buses. I mean, you know, everything about as we're currently envisioning.
Yeah, I was hoping that perfect, that throw up the route right there. Yeah, so we have this doesn't show the other branches of the C, but basically over there at Cottage Grove and Dempsey, the C breaks off into two different branches. One continues down Cottage Grove, one continues down Buckeye. We kind of saved a bus for you that right now it just has a nice long break. But we saved a bus to serve Monona, kind of pending all for your approvals. So it's connected to the regular C route that goes down Jennifer Street and goes through Atwood and the Madison Municipal Building, and eventually going down Old University to University Bay and the UW Hospital.
Right.
So this would the C3 here would be another branch. It'd be part of the C.
Yep.
So you'd be able to access all of those locations that where the C goes. So unfortunately, this is a little bit longer route than some of the stuff we drew up before. It does get benefits of getting to some more areas. So we'd actually have to add another bus to it.
Okay.
To be able to make it work. So the plan is right now is to have service every 60 minutes. It's two-way. So there's no one-way loops, which we're kind of moving away from with the redesign. And then this would be two-way service every 60 minutes, Monday through Friday. We haven't figured out exactly, there's still some stuff kind of to hammer out about first trips and last trips, but one thing we know is that this could only go to about 7:30 p.m. or so, because we actually reduce service on the C route. So the rest of the branches get service reduced at 7. So it's pretty difficult for us to have more service after then. And then at this point, I've talked to Justin and we're not planning on weekend service at this time, but it's something that we could certainly look at later. But yeah, it's pretty similar to the route that I think last year we talked about with the commission. It goes down.
Sean, just real quick, sorry to interrupt you, but you said it ended at about 7:30. What time would it start?
That is something that we'll have to figure out. I mean, the regular C route and some of this too is about how, the cost to the city as well. I like to look, I think, I know that you canceled your first bus for the Monona Express. I don't think that's running anymore. I would probably match it with what's running currently now.
Because there's no staffing on it.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
because we didn't want to run it, it's because I didn't have staff.
Yeah.
Completely understand. We had to cancel a bunch of buses recently, actually. So we have challenges as well. So the first trip we'd have to figure out, but it'd probably be sometime around 7 or 6:30 or so. The C is also planned for early hospital workers. That's something we'd have to look into later as far as the start. But that's certainly something that we can hammer out, obviously, before we get this going. So not sure exactly when the first trip would be, but it would be all day service, hourly, until around 7:30 p.m. or so.
So Sean, just as a follow-up to that, so you're saying hourly, you're talking about hitting every stop once every hour?
Yes.
Including everything in the C3, so it's not. So it's not every half hour,
No.
it's every hour.
Yes.
This is supposed to be every 40 minutes, I think Justin was telling me roughly.
I mean so it kind of depends. So when you're doing transit planning, you kind of have to do like a full bus. You can't run half of a bus, and so being that this is going to require 2 buses, I mean, it could be more frequent. That just gets really expensive very quickly. And so that's something I think we'd have to kind of go over with the bill. But as of now, I've been told that we're looking at 60 minutes. We certainly have time to iron that out later. One of the issues too, so we were talking about two-way, it just spreads our resources a little bit thinner. It's a lot more easy for people to use the two-way and but it just does require more resources. And so,
Right. So, but when you say every hour, so let's just say, if I'm down by the city center, let's say on C3, then the bus is gonna come south and follow and take a turn at Dean, right?
Mhm.
And it's gonna be going on the way down, it's basically gonna be going counterclockwise. Yes?
it will be going both directions. So there'll be a bus that turns left on the Dean, and then there'll be a bus that turns left on Monona Drive. It's a two-way route. There's no one-way loops. I know that we talked about that last year, but the current route is two-way.
So it comes down and then it goes down to Dutch Mill and goes right back.
Yeah. So, we'd have to have a driver break over at Dutch Mill, so there might be some people that wanna ride through, but they would have to wait through a break, pretty common in the rest of Madison.
Okay, so, you would not. So there would not be a bus on C3 on the west side of Monona. Like to get to the city center, or Nichols, or drive on Nichols or Dean, there would only be effectively 14. Or 13 buses a day that go down those streets, because it's going once an hour,
An
correct?
important part of this is that also, we would add stops to routes L and G.
Yes,
Which are much more frequent,
yes,
and that would be a huge benefit to the city.
right. No, we understand that. So, I appreciate that clarity, because I think we misspoke at the last council meeting when we said it was gonna be every half hour.
Yeah.
And you're saying that actually it's every hour.
Yes,
Running
but to be fair, the G is every half hour, so that was still
Correct.
partly right.
Yeah,
Yeah, we get that, The primary concern that we have from the community is the C3 route. So that's why, clarity around there is important. So,
Can I ask a question?
yes, you may.
Okay. It's once an hour in each direction, or once an hour northbound and southbound, or northbound, sorry. What,
I get what you
Like,
mean.
I get it,
a
because
bus,
that's
a
exactly
bus
why
goes
I'm
by,
asking the
It's
question.
once
wait,
an hour
let me
each
finish,
direction,
please,
right?
please, let me just clarify.
24 times
Yeah.
a day.
Does the bus go north at 9 o'clock, and then at 8 o'clock, it's coming fast going south?
Yeah, I see what you're asking. There is a possibility where, there's one bus that could cross each other because they're going in both directions.
Right.
So it's similar to what's happening on Buckeye Road right now, where that's an hourly route that goes two directions.
So
Um,
it's once an hour in each direction.
Yes,
So
24.
in other words, if I was standing at the intersection of Winnequa and Nichols and counting how many buses go by, I would see between 8 AM and 9 AM, 2 buses, one going outbound and one coming inbound.
correct.
Okay, so it is, actually, it's not every half hour, but it's still,
Twice in the hour
Means-
will be a bus.
yeah, it's still,
roughly twice an hour.
but it's roughly twice an hour that you would see a bus on C3.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Then I think the other, Doug, did you have any additional clarity on that piece that you were looking for?
No, I was just digging to make sure we were
Yeah.
fully grasping the the arrangement.
Exactly why I wanted to start here, because, so then the other thing is, Sean, as you know, we've discussed the southbound. Going down Femright to Park and Ride. We love the idea of it going to Park and Ride, but we're very concerned about not having coverage on Broadway, that section of Broadway that has nothing. It doesn't have G, it doesn't have C3, it doesn't have anything, because that's our major intersection and major shopping area. And we also have a major park that is in our farmers market all on that stretch. And a major park that gets used on a regular basis by, for football, baseball, etc. And so I know that Mark has already asked you
Or just.
for an adjustment there. We were hoping that you could take a turn, go straight across on Broadway once you leave Park, or when you're going on the north route, if you will, you would go west on Broadway to Monona Drive and then go up past Femright. And my understanding from talking to you guys is that doesn't work for you, and if you could explain to the commission why that doesn't work, because we would like to figure out an alternative to that.
Okay, yeah.
That works better.
So one of the issues is we have required breaks for the drivers. So one of the options was to have that little loop. That was much easier to do when we had the transfer point system where all of their breaks were done at the transfer points, and so those loops were much easier. Now that we have this two-way service, we need kind of a logical endpoint where they can get out, use a bathroom, and they can catch up a schedule if they're late. So that the natural place for that was at the Dutch Mill Park and Ride. We do plan to add stops for Route G that would be on Broadway and Monona. So it would provide access to that grocery store in there. It is a little walk to the park over there. But one of the other issues too is safe crossings and things. Broadway has limited safe areas to cross as well. And then there's also the issue of kind of the existing Monona Express route that goes down Femrite. I remember a year ago, a couple of the folks that live in those apartments there like continuing service. So I mean, if we could dip down to Broadway and maybe come back on something like Edna Taylor, but it would mean that, you know, those apartments there along Femrite wouldn't be served. So there's certainly, we can talk about different options with that, but what we can't do is have a one-way loop.
I know Judson, when I talked to him, his concern was, I mean, you could do it, but you guys didn't want to really recommend it, because really, if you go down Femrite and you're coming back, you're not gonna be able to get picked up to go down to where, you know, on the C3 route, you would have to walk all the way from, you know, if you're down the Chateau Lane, which is that Copsville, but you had to walk all the way up to Femrite to get to the bus, or down, you know, the Broadway, and he thought we'd be losing people, that be more people affected by that too. Was one of his issues, and also the same things you kind of sent the crosswalks.
Yeah.
But Femrite would be served because there would be a bus going down there.
They'd have to wait.
At
through
least
the
14
break, But
huh?
they'd have to wait through the break, but they could take it if it looped the right way.
Right, and it's also would it, I mean, Edna Taylor isn't quite as far over, I think is not quite as far over as we would like if you're against turning on Monona Drive. Rather than Edna Taylor, would you consider turning at Roselawn? Because Roselawn, then it would take you up to Femrite.
Wait, is Roselawn the name of the road that goes through the middle of the cemetery, or is it the one
No,
that's
it's the
on
one that goes
Okay.
in between Valley's.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
see Sean, you know where Broadway
Thank
is,
you. Yep,
And
I gotcha.
it's that first little line past Broadway.
So it's directly across the entrance to Metro Mart.
It's this one right
Can
here,
you
right?
see that? I don't know if you can see that.
Right,
That's Roselawn, right?
right, exactly.
That's
Yeah, so I
Oh,
just
so
kind
you
of threw
do,
up if you can see there as an
Okay.
option. Yeah,
Whoa,
that would
Because
be,
that would at least, that puts you right smack in the, you know, right smack at the entrance to our Metro Mart. And to our primary shopping area and without getting caught up in the you know, the busy intersection of Broadway and Monona, although you guys drive that all the time. But and then you'd be going back up to Femrite.
oh, I see.
yeah, I think you have it wrong on your map, because what you still go heading west or east, you still go to the Park and Ride instead of doing that.
Yep, you'd still go to the park and ride.
Then come back instead of going back on,
Instead of going, you go to the park and ride and then you come out of the park and ride, it goes straight across on Broadway to Roselawn and take a right up to
Oh.
Femrite.
does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, I have to check, we have to check to make sure that there's safe turn. Is there a signal there at Roselawn?
No, there's not.
That
Yes,
might
there
be an
is.
issue.
Roseland?
no.
Yeah,
No, the
no,
shopping,
the shopping center has a light.
it's
They-
up half a block.
You have to go up a
Yeah.
little
No,
bit.
it's not-
Yeah,
it's
they're
at
not right
Roselawn.
across from each
You
other.
go straight
Oh,
into
you're
the-
right,
You go
Yeah.
straight into that.
you're right.
So our safety team kind of looks at those unsignalized lefts especially, or at a case by case basis. So we'd have to look into that.
It would be a
Yeah,
right.
we're right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it'll be a right on it. Yeah, but oh, so it's unsignalized right. Okay, so Okay, let me try to understand what you're saying here. So you would want it to go two-way and not have service on Femrite at all?
No, you.
No,
No.
not at all. We're talking about having a loop,
Oh.
effectively a loop at the bottom.
Oh,
So you'd
okay.
go, when you're going south, you'd go south to Femrite, go down Femrite to Park and Ride, as it's drawn there now. But then when you come out of Park and Ride, instead of turning and going back up Femrite, which would only be a few minutes after you just left there, even be a
So-
pretty quick turnaround,
Mhm.
you would go down Broadway and either take a turn, take a turn at Monona Drive to go back up to Owen, or you would, or if you're
We're back to the whole one-way thing that he was telling us not to do.
So, I don't know, half the room is frozen. Is it frozen for other people?
It was for me.
It, yeah, looks like, are we back? Okay, I see the button.
So I'm trying to get
Yeah,
to
we
that.
need to ask. I don't know if the right turn is too tight or.
No, it's not. Can you, Sean, can you explain, I know, or Mark, can you explain initially? When we asked about this, because this was a big topic of discussion at the last transit meeting.
Mark, would you mind zooming in that corner?
We, our wish was, our stance was it's really important to go
Right-hand
over
corner.
to,
Further right.
was to go all the way over to Monona Drive and turn on Monona Drive to go back up Monona Drive to Owen, and then obviously going north, you'd be taking a left onto Owen and following C3 around to do the return route. So in other words, Femrite would always have service, it just would have service one way, because going the other way, we would be covering Broadway.
So
That now
typically,
has,
we have breaks that are like 15, 20, even up to 45 minutes.
okay,
It would mean if we were to do that, which is possible, and it works out kind of well because we can have no stops on the north side of Broadway. The people on Femrite would have to wait through that break, which might make the travel time really uncompetitive, I must say.
But I'm not, I mean, splitting the difference and having the loop seems reasonable, because it's like if someone's on Femrite on one of those blocks, they could either go down to Broadway without having to cross Broadway if they're going northbound onto the isthmus, or they can go to Monona Drive.
could you hear that, Laura and Doug?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I can hear.
Okay,
It's their way to show it.
Rather than the current thing, which is like basically the people, if you wanna go to Broadway, or if you live on Broadway, you're kind of.
move the cursor at the bottom.
I think I'm following what Brian is telling us. And that's, if you're trying to get to the grocery store and your ride involves a half-hour break, that's an unreasonable travel time. But
Right.
if you can reconfigure the route so that maybe you turn on Femrite, you pick some people up at that apartment complex there, and then you head down Roselawn to Broadway, or wherever we can figure out an access point that is safe. You have access to the shopping center, you know, within the ride before the terminus of the route.
Right, except for then you would be skipping Park and Ride altogether, would you not?
No, that would be the terminus of the route still.
Yeah, it's basically, it's realigning the route where, we're looking at two-way options, kind of something's got to give. So that the area of Femrite and Cops then, from that understanding, would not be served. So it'd be down Roselawn, then, if I understand this properly, down to Broadway. And so some of that area wouldn't be served. They would have to walk down to Broadway, but the benefit they would get is they wouldn't have to wait through a break.
Maybe you could, knowing what we're going for here, maybe you could help us work on this, because I think you get that we would love for the bus to serve that shopping center there. And I think there's also a clinic on Broadway, UW Health, that could be served too.
Yes,
But we, I think naively thought, oh, we'll just loop this thing back around and that's no problem. But didn't think about the break. So
Yeah, this certainly isn't the only place within our service area. Madison has this. We have a similar issue in North Madison right now where, yeah, lots of people are waiting through a break. So yeah, it's certainly it's something we can look at. So here I'm gonna, and on the risk of doing it wrong, I think this is what you're talking about. Is that correct? I don't know if you can see that.
I can see it, and something like that is what I'm saying. Yeah.
So yeah, the getting a stop on Broadway there, that would be something we'd have to look into.
What would it matter? I'm gonna pull something up, just wait 1 second.
I can tell you certainly one,
Cause here,
as a community, one of the things that we would be interested in, our Parks and Rec department would be interested in as well, is having a stop by Ahuska and the tennis courts. Because that park is used really heavily with lots of cars.
Great.
For, particularly in the summer months, for football, or, well, summer, fall and spring, for baseball. And for football.
I do got a question here, so here's G route, I know these are, Justin gave me these are not official, and they're just a draft, and. For the G route, he had like a stop down here. So if they were on the C route, how could they get on the G route to get to this? I mean, because here's a crossing too, so I'm just thinking outside the box, how would that work? If you didn't have this and kept it the same on this route.
Well, you get a free 2-hour transfer, so you could certainly transfer. There's a shared stop there, kind of where Femrite and Monona Drive is.
So right here, you would have they could jump onto if you had to jump buses from the C down to the G, across there too. Is that how that would work?
Yes.
Something to think about.
So yeah,
G-
I certainly
Yeah,
understand the park. One of the issues is that I'm looking at where the stop location could be, and there's not kind of a safe crossing to the other side near the park. There's a right turn lane, and then it would have to stop in the middle of a lane when it's 2 lanes. I don't know where your city's traffic engineering department would be on something like that. I also think that maybe does WSDOT have partial ownership of Broadway?
They do.
Yes.
That's just something we think of too, we usually try to avoid that, kind of stopping when there's only two lanes, especially 1 lane, but the crossing for that park will be an issue if we go 2-way on Broadway, because they're gonna wanna cross. Which is why over at Monona Drive, it's farther, but at least they have crossing facilities.
But it's doable because the G runs up and down Broadway west of Monona Drive. So you're not saying it's impossible, you're just saying it takes a little bit more work.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just something when we're citing bus stops, we gotta make sure that there's safety and looking at the crossings and things, similar to stuff that we did for our own bus redesign.
So can we go back to the drawing that you just did?
Oh, you mean the one from Roselawn?
Yes. It's all right, I guess what I'm unclear on is. Very good. Thank you. So the bus would come down Femrite. And then turn Cops, right, at Cops, and then go out to Park and Ride for a break. and then come out of the Dutch Mill Park and Ride, and drive across Broadway to Rose Lawn, hopping back on Femrite. So if, somebody on Femrite missed it going down, they could hop on it as it came back up to Femrite at the top of Rose Lawn.
So, excuse me, in similar areas, we've kind of seen this filtered out by people's walking ability. If people will walk to save some time if they can. If they can't walk, or if they have some extra time, they'll wait for the break. So there's kind of that too.
Right. And do you only do breaks, at like park and rides or public facilities like that? Or could you actually, just throwing it out there, could you actually do a break at the shopping center?
One of the issues there is stopping in lane. We can stop in lane, for a couple seconds or something if we're letting people on and off, but sitting there for 20 minutes, it's going to start blocking traffic and things.
No, I was just thinking that I've seen Sean, maybe I'm, spilling the beans, but I was just thinking, could it, whether it's at Ahuska or whether it's at the Metro Mart shopping center, I could have sworn I've seen buses seemingly on a break, let's say at Southtown.
Not that I know of, yeah.
And I think they might be, I've seen them. I don't. And so I just wondered if there was any way, if you pulled into the shopping center and that's where you had the break.
I feel like there'd be concerns about like places where there are a lot of people coming in and out of cars and retail centers, like at the park and ride, you expect buses to be there.
Yeah.
Whereas like people are coming out with like kids at the grocery store, and I'm sure there's some safety reason related.
Why they don't do
Yeah,
that.
why they don't do that.
Yeah, just
Private
so that I was
property
just
as
thinking
well.
the north end of the parking lot is there,
Yeah.
has entrance.
We have really old legacy agreements about pulling in there, for reasons that you mentioned. It's a big problem. Also, usually for the driver, the bathroom is like way in the back of the produce section. It just takes much longer for them to use the bathroom.
Got it.
Yeah.
So we've been
Makes sense.
using gas stations just because they're in and out.
Yep. Got it. Okay,
Is there any way you can, maybe you
Oh, no. we
come
don't.
back with what you
It
think
just
maybe
seems
it look like?
No matter what way you slice it, if you're trying to go to the grocery store and you're trying to use the bus both ways, you will have to walk significantly or wait, like.
Yeah.
It takes away the convenience, no matter where the route is.
Yeah.
There's not, I don't know if there's any like secret option C, that avoids that scenario.
Well, yeah, cause speaking of public facilities with pull-in areas, does the city of Monona still have public facilities on Edna Taylor Road that could be used for the bus? No, we want coverage of the park and ride, never mind, we do wanna get people to the park and ride, yes, never mind, pull that back, sorry.
So that, and this is something that we would definitely need some more time to look into. There, that route L, there's probably some efficiencies if we kind of integrate it a little bit and we could have C3s turning into Ls and things. I don't want to postulate too much on that because it's really open-ended. But it's something that, now that I kind of hear what you like to do, we could kind of come up with some alternatives and things, to look at that end. Because right now, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, the way how this is penciling out right now, we have to add an extra bus, and right now the break at the Dutch Mill Park and Ride is something like 50 minutes. So there's some wizardry we can do, but my team kind of needs a little time to work on that. And there's going to be lots of questions going back and forth about how that might work, and it certainly has implications for other places in Madison that the L serves.
okay.
Can I ask a broader question?
Sure.
About that? I've heard that the routes, like there have been adjustments in response to feedback. And I've also heard a lot of complaints about the peak commuter hour service in the afternoons for the C route. And that was kind of concerning to me, given that we're thinking of glomming on to that route. Is that something that you're aware of and that you're addressing? And that is reflected in like the estimated times that you've given us for like when the bus is gonna come through and how long trips will take?
Yes, so it's certainly something. So this summer, Route C got really unlucky. There was about 3 different construction zones it was going through. There was going through one in Atwood, there was one on Johnson and Wilson, there's lane closures. And then we also, starting December 3rd, we added significant time to it. I'm like 16 hours a day to Route C just to make up for some of the late buses that we had. Just for when we set the schedules, we had to make a lot of assumptions, and in a lot of our delay, I mean, there's traffic and construction and things, but part of it is it's kind of a product of its own success. The boarding slows down the most. So the C is doing really well, actually. It's just kind of become a product of its own success. And just recently, we added significant resources to it to make sure that it has better on-time performance. And the last we checked, it was somewhere like 88% on time. December's a little different. There's a little bit less commuters and things, so we'll see what happens when they come back after the holidays. But we've certainly looked into that. There's a couple of other routes we had to add resources to. It is stretching us a little thin. We had to cancel some service recently, but I think it's something that we can catch up with, and we feel confident that we can make this happen.
I had one other question, Sean, before about travel times and estimates of travel times, because I've heard everything from 20 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour. So let me give you 2 hypotheticals. Say I'm standing at the Dutch Mill Park and Ride trying to get to Capitol Square. And then similarly, if I'm trying to get from, somewhere like Winnequa, going the other direction, if I'm trying to get from the Capitol Square back to the Park and Ride, is it the same amount of time?
So it kind of depends. That's actually something that we had to guess a lot for. We have different travel times for the peak that kind of have better on-time performance. You can look, and it's really hard to say kind of, because we haven't operated on these streets before. I'm guessing within the city, the classic city of Monona, west of Monona Drive, that have pretty regular travel times. The issue is for the C is when it has to go down through the Isthmus and campus. That's where it really gets delayed. So yeah, the side where Monona is, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you right now about what the travel time would look like. But it's not an express service. It is an all-stop service, and especially in the peak, it's pretty high ridership. And it goes by a number of bus stops on the way there. That being said, it does provide access to other neighborhoods besides some of the job centers, some of the kind of the more cultural activities and things like on Jennifer, on Willie Street and things like that. But
So as a follow-up to that, again, I think we've heard from Metro previously, if you were getting on, rather than Park and Ride, if you're getting on Dean and Monona Drive, let's say. And to take C, because we have people that do that right now with the Express. What do you, we've heard from Metro before that it would only be like 15 or 20 minutes longer.
that's about right. I think that's still correct. One of the things that when we add resources to the C, we did slow it down a little bit just to make up for traffic and on-time performance issues. So that actually just changed, December 3rd, so recently. So some of those numbers might have changed slightly. But yeah, I can't really sugarcoat it. There are a lot of stops on the way to downtown.
I have a question. You said the service would end at 7:30. Does that mean the last bus leaves Monona at 7:30, or there's no more buses going through Monona by 7:30?
That's about right. It depends on how we cut it, and I have to actually talk to my scheduler about that, because we just recently changed the service a little bit, but Yeah, at 7 p.m., the entire metro system starts kind of ramping down to weekend frequencies. And so that's when we start pulling buses in, and that would be Justin has told me that's when we would stop. Sorry.
I know I've had some conversations with him, I know he sent me some maps, so. That will follow up, because he had some times, I just talked to you about around 7:30, one was at 7:45, so I think it's probably something we need to sit down with Justin to and figure that out.
Okay.
And the L and the G are still running late. So,
LNG are running 365. They're running 4 in the morning till like 11 or midnight. So
Okay.
that would be the kind of the core service. But this service within, like Winnequa and things would ramp down.
thanks.
Hey, I guess I have one more question. You said you added a bus to be able to accommodate the C3, is that right?
Yes, so we have so basically right now we have the C and it ends at Cottage Grove and Dempsey. We were kind of saving that as a placeholder for that to come down. Unfortunately, the route we have here is a little too long for the time that has. So we would have to add a bus to Route C to be able to support this frequency with this alignment.
Oh. So the rest of the C route would have that much more of a bus dedicated to it.
Yes.
Wow, okay, interesting. Thank you.
So. Do we want to look at stops, or do we have other questions about the routes?
Yeah, are we gonna get to the 3/4 of a mile paratransit coverage
Yeah.
question? Is that
But
here or is that farther down the agenda?
No, it's
That's
not.
there.
It's not. It's
Okay,
just-
yeah.
It's a question. Yeah,
So as I understand it, and I'll pose the question as I understand it, is that paratransit service is only available to residents for pickup stops and drop-off stops within 3/4 miles of a Madison route. In operating metro route. And so what this means is that there is a small portion of the nose of Monona, what do we all call that little point?
Which one, Belle Eel?
I call it the
Right here.
Moose Head Park.
Yeah, what?
Belle Eel.
one that's
Belle
white.
Eel,
It's not Bellevue, it's
It's
like,
Belle Eel.
I call it,
It's Winnequa, it's Winnequa.
but farther
Like
farther
the
down than where
little-
you circled.
The one that's white, this
Oh,
would not be
that's
covered
the section.
Yeah,
Oh my
so
gosh,
this is the
that's
concern
huge.
is that
on weekends.
on weekends, when the C3 is not running, would paratransit service be available to the residents in that part of Monona?
So as it stands, no. This is something that we've talked about with the city of Sun Prairie as well. Once we throw some stops on Monona Drive, it's a 3/4 mile buffer from the L and the G. So those people would always be served. Oh, I see you kind of have it there. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, that since 1990, they call it this Americans with Disability Act buffer. And it's complimentary paratransit that was originally done when buses didn't have wheelchair lifts and things. And so that was a way for people who couldn't ride the bus to have access. And so that's the same buffer that we use for the rest of the city. There's other places too where we have weekday only routes that drop off where we don't serve in the city of Madison as well. So Justin said that we could look into that now. Currently our contractors are kind of need to catch up a little bit. We don't have the capacity to add more weekend service right now, but it's certainly something that we could look into.
I know you told me it'd be like a year or two away, but
Yeah, that I guess that's correct if you said it.
So if that area is not served on the weekends because we're not running C3. My understanding also, from a discussion that was had with your operations manager. Is, I didn't have that conversation, I'm just relaying, is that it doesn't mean that we would, in order to cover that area, it doesn't mean that we would have to have C3 with the same frequency necessarily. As it
No.
is, as it is Monday through Friday, it could mean that we run 4 buses on Monday through Friday, or C3, and that would then mean that that area is covered by paratransit. Is that right?
It kind of depends. So we have peak routes that don't get paratransit. It's a little bit of a gray area how much frequency you need to be considered an all-day route, I'd say. Roughly 90 minutes, 2 hours, kind of ballpark. In other agencies I've worked, we use 2 hours. I'm not sure exactly what we use here, since we haven't had that infrequent of routes that I know of.
So if C3 ran every 2 hours on weekends, as opposed to every 30 minutes, or every hour, since it's a two-way, then that area that's not currently served by paratransit as per this map would be covered.
Yes.
But it's gonna be a year before you can. do
No, they said,
weekend
no.
service?
no, he's working it, so what Justin is telling me is or currently they can't do this further than 3/4 mile, they're working on it. So they said, he thought maybe a year or so that they could get that, where they can do more than 3/4 of a mile,
Oh,
so. And part
but
of it,
we need weekend service 2 hours or more frequently to get this coverage.
yeah, so that's what Nancy's asking.
To get
Right.
coverage for all of Monona
Yeah,
Road.
When would we be able to start weekend service?
We can start it when we start everything else.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So what we're waiting for is coverage for the 3/4 of a mile from the route. For paratransit,
so right now, this is the weekends coverage, so this area in the weekend would not be covered.
unless we have coverage on the weekend.
Unless we do the C3 for like basic,
And currently, what's available now? Nothing? Monona Lift is
Currently
only
nothing on
Monday
weekend.
through Friday?
Yeah.
Okay.
so basically everybody here,
And was there a sense from the hearings that that's a major that people want
I
weekends?
didn't really go in much detail about it, so I don't.
Oh, okay.
I think the coverage for paratransit being 7 days a week is considered pretty important.
Sean, does this also mean that they can't drop off in that area as well? Which I think, if I'm looking at the map, includes most of our city services?
Yes, so it's pick up or drop off. In some agencies, sometimes, and this is kind of really depending on your situation and or disability. Some people walk to the edge of the service area to do this. I know it's really close to kind of your civic center there. I've seen that parcel map. I mean, that might be an option, but it certainly doesn't work for everyone.
Okay, so yeah, so
Based on
people
what-
using paratransit couldn't get to Monona facilities on the weekend either. Right,
Yeah.
so this is a
It's
double.
right here, so here's.
I guess it's just a huge jump for us to go from the resolution we talked about at our last meeting. To then go to, okay, now actually, we're gonna do something that costs a lot more and involves buses going down our streets 7 days a week. It's a big change from what we. I understand it's just inherently unfair that certain people won't get to use transit on the weekends, but I think we should be mindful of the fact that like I don't know if we can just talk about adding weekend service lightly, you know.
No, I don't think and I don't think we would need to change our resolution. I mean, I could make an amendment, for instance, to the resolution at the council. It doesn't have to come back through us.
Oh, okay.
Well, right here's the library, and it's covered.
Oh, it is, okay,
Yeah,
just
the
because
city
of
services-
Tiny,
yeah, I
That's
just
okay.
from back here, I thought we were off that
The
block.
library, I mean, it'd be the one in the park, you'd still get to the park. and at
You'd
the
still
end-
get to the park, you'd still get to City Hall, you'd still get to the library.
I mean,
Okay.
Biggest one would be the library,
Yeah.
which is open on the weekends,
just
and the park. So you
question of
couldn't-
anyone who lives there getting,
Yeah, so you wouldn't be able to still get to those areas.
Right.
And I admit the issue feels so silly to me. I mean, it seems so deeply inequitable.
Right,
Not to
Right,
have
the-
accessibility for. people
Yeah,
with
that this
paratransit.
little corner gets cut off because Monona Drive is a straight line and Monona Shoreline is crooked. You know, it just seems. I don't know, it's frustrating because it seems like this should not be an issue. Like, I understand if somebody lives outside the coverage area, right? And wants the bus to leave the general coverage area, go farther out to pick them up and bring them into the cover, like, I understand the buffer there, but this seems to just be a weird pocket that just isn't gonna get bus service for a weird reason. I don't know.
But they are working on that. I mean, that's what they're saying. They're working to extend that. And I
Yeah.
assume it's eventually, I assume, Sean, you think it's eventually gonna happen here within a year or so. I think part is the vendor, right, which is for student drivers, which that's part of the issue, right?
Oh, there.
Yeah, I mean-
They're paratransit drivers.
Oh,
They took
okay.
a Badger bus, who's the,
they bought Magic Bus.
yeah.
Yeah, we certainly have other pockets like this throughout the city of Madison. And
Okay, so I'm gonna suggest either it's gone through you or through Mark, that we get a quote for additional service on the weekend,
For 2 hours.
every 2 hours. On C3. To Jillian's point, I wanna make it perfectly clear that, this was due to miscommunication between, I mean, this is not something that this commission was aware of, because our understanding from talking to Metro was that even though we didn't have service on weekends, we would still have full paratransit service.
Yeah, and that was my fault.
And we just learned within the last couple of days that that's not the case. So, we're just continuing with our due diligence to make sure we get it right. But having an additional quote from you in terms of what it would cost to do weekends would be helpful.
Is that something you just want me, would that be for you or for Justin, Sean? I'm sure it's Justin.
well, so we have to kind of look at how many hours there would be. We'd have to see how it works in our operational scheme. And then we have to annualize that and make a new bill.
Sure. So if you two could work together and let me know. that'd be great.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, no, loud and clear here, yeah.
Well, we probably don't have to tell you that it would be a heck of a lot cheaper to just say, we'll let paratransit get down to that area.
It's
Cheaper
certainly
for
not the
you
first person
and
who's
for
asked me
us.
that.
Huh?
Oh, it's certainly that's Sun Prairie asked us the same thing and.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're disappointed to hear that, but we'll wait to hear from you in terms of the amount and we'll discuss whether or not.
I just have
Yeah.
one clarifying question. If we don't have weekend service, we can't have paratransit during the week or during the weekends, correct?
No. So, it's based upon the day of service. So,
That was the thing that.
yeah, Monday
Oh,
through
okay.
Friday, the whole city's covered. And, if you didn't have C3 in the weekend, all of these, little,
These
Right.
areas would not be covered on the weekends.
Yes,
like-
only,
Correct.
just weekends,
Correct,
just
yeah.
weekends.
Yeah.
Just
they're,
weekends,
they're
because we-
covered because of the G and L on the weekends,
Yeah.
these areas.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
Otherwise, 100%.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay, now do we wanna go to stops?
That's a big one. We'll be here all night.
Mm-mm.
These are just suggestions that when I sat down with or talked to Justin. And he was hesitant because he doesn't want to make it like this is the actual, but he wanted to give us a draft and say, here's based on what we would look at, this is what I would recommend to us. So this was his template, the draft of that, so.
So, Sean. I have two questions about this. or the larger scheme of things, what does Madison Metro have as the minimum infrastructure standards, minimum or maximum infrastructure standards for bus stops?
I'd say a pad, concrete pad where we can deploy a wheelchair lift. I think some of the older kind of what we call a legacy stop for Monona Express, some of those, it's not really feasible to install a pad. Those can be grandfathered in before ADA, so we can continue to serve existing Monona Express stops that don't have a pad. But new ones, we're definitely trying, to get poured pads as many places as possible. Ideally, a bench or shelter or garbage can would be great. But I think the minimum is a poured concrete pad for a brand new stop.
How big?
I unfortunately not the right person. Our Mike Chickball, our capital projects manager, is out the rest of the month, but he has bus stop specifications that I can pass to you after this meeting.
Okay.
Well, it's easy to find out, I'm sure Brad knows too. So there are a number of these that are marked as new stops that would not be actually new stops because they're already served by the express.
Yes, so and the previous map I kind of there were slightly different. This is a little bit more refined by some of our planners here, based upon kind of feasibility and existing stops. There's a really old map from a year ago that shows which ones are new and which ones aren't. But
Okay.
but yeah, the Monona Express ones, a lot of those are they're just a sign and a lawn, and we can continue to serve those. And certainly they're in some places that are a little difficult to pour a pad. So the pad is just for the front door. It's not the length of the bus. And so they can be rather unassuming things, but residential areas make that much more difficult. So we kind of carefully selected areas that we felt like, wasn't pouring a pad right in someone's terrace. That being said, there might be one or two of those. I haven't reviewed every stop here since this was updated.
Well, when you say terrace, they're probably not wide enough themselves for what you're looking for. So, and you have sidewalk in some cases, so how would that fit in between the sidewalk and the street?
So if there's no terrace and the sidewalk straight on the street, that's perfect.
Okay.
What we're trying to do is to kneel the bus and put down a wheelchair ramp.
Okay. Cool. So on Dean and Nichols.
This is Doug.
Go
I was
for it.
gonna say it would be nice if we could study this exhibit in our non-meeting time to understand a little bit more about the geographical location of each of these,
Agreed.
but I don't think I could really discuss them without some sort of a structure for that discussion. So just a thought.
It's a good one, thank you.
So one of the things is that, we did the alignment of the stop of the route first, and then we do the stop. So if we can get closer to the alignment, there might be some areas that we're all in agreement that that's where it's going to go. Maybe it's just the Femrite Broadway thing that we got to figure out. I can have our staff kind of mock up every stop and we can at least have a little Google Street View with, that's kind of marked up, guessing where we think it would go. So that's something that we can definitely come back.
Broadly, I think the distribution of the stops looks great. Ample, so.
Yeah, I mean, I know, is it correct, Sean, that my understanding is that the sort of gold standard, if you will, is that there are stops no more than a half a mile apart?
That's more of a bus rapid transit, so more of a local route like this, we usually do around a quarter mile.
Okay,
That's just a policy. If there's a place that's obviously closer that you should have a stop, that's fine. In some cases, there's not much going on there and you kind of break that a little bit. So it's kind of on average. And it really depends too, especially when you have turning lanes and places where the bus could be in a dangerous location. So there's kind of a balance of that basic quarter mile and kind of where it's feasible to have a stop.
Okay,
And all of this is at the city expense, the cost for these things?
no,
No,
You mean the pass and stuff like that? That's a city expense.
Yeah,
no,
that's what I
not
meant.
all of the ones would be a city expense.
No,
Not
not-
everything that he's saying on there would be a city expense. Monona Drive and Broadway, we do not have. We don't own Monona Drive, fully own Monona Drive
Oh,
and
right,
Broadway,
yeah.
so the ones that are on Monona Drive and
Yeah.
Monona Road. Drive and Broadway would be, at a minimum, would be a shared expense because it's not our property.
Yeah.
It's not wholly our property.
okay,
The
So,
roads are not wholly our roads either.
so Sean,
Monona and Broadway, we would have a sharing arrangement with them.
Right.
All right.
is it possible for them to have that for our next meeting, that we could have a map by second second Wednesday in January? You talked about your people, or is that gonna be more February?
I
I don't know, it's
have to check
Christmas
on
time,
people's
it's
vacation
holiday.
schedule. Yeah,
Yeah, so I just want, it's probably February more realistic, or?
I think that's just safer with the holidays and I just I don't want to assign too much stuff to people who are on vacation right now.
Just wanna make sure, you know, had an idea.
Yeah.
So when you do that, Sean, especially since we're giving you an extra month. Could you make, you know. When you mark that up, could you make sure to mark up, those stops that you would say would be quote unquote legacy and where
Oh, yeah.
you, as you said, based on your recommendation, where you think the best stops would be. Given. You know, so that we get a lot more detail in the way in, it would be, if the thing is, if we don't. It would be really helpful to get it sometime in January so that we can review it prior to the February meeting, so I don't wanna give you the February meeting as the deadline. Because we need time to review it before the meeting.
Oh, certainly. Actually, that also, there's some other stuff that you guys mentioned about, you know, do different things with Femrite and Broadway and for us, we kind of need to figure out how this fits into things operationally.
You
So
bet,
that actually is, that gives us some time to do some of that stuff too. So
Yeah.
that would be nice.
and just out of curiosity, since this is a close-up, I have another question about. G, which is to say, as you know, that Madison Metro in concert with. Monona, a number of years ago, put in a pretty fancy stop at Walmart.
I
and-
was not here when that happened.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, it's one of our fancier stops.
What stops there?
Was, gee.
It does stop.
Is it G? And does G still
wow.
serve that?
Yes,
It does? G still
Yes.
serves the Walmart.
G serves 2 Walmarts.
Two Walmarts.
Wow.
Call it the Walmart run.
Party
Oh,
idea.
Okay, so because we're always looking at maps that kind of go off the map when we leave Monona, I just wanted to make
So
sure that. Even though Walmart is in Monona, as is our entire industrial park. I wanna make sure that G still goes over to Walmart, because that would be another shopping option. Certainly that some people have.
Yeah, definitely. The Fitchburg and Southdale residents use that for that reason.
Okay,
Said we put in that stop you're talking about at Walmart,
yes, we did.
the one that
And
showed.
it has a shelter and it has solar
Has a solar
panel.
And the city paid for
The city did.
No, Walmart really,
Well,
Walmart
that. Okay.
underwrote it with a grant.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
they reimbursed us.
Could use another, something on the other side.
Yeah.
At least a pad.
All right, do we have any other questions for Sean?
As part of the information we're getting for the next meeting from you, Sean, can we get at least some ranges of estimates for travel times?
Yeah,
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously, you know, faster on the weekend, if we can look at that too. But we can certainly do that.
Thank you,
Sean, this
Sean.
is Doug. I'm sorry. I think I called you Brian earlier and I apologize.
Brian was, Brian.
Yeah. Yeah, I concur with Addie. I think the travel times, based on whatever you mock up for the stops that you're recommending. Would be really helpful.
Yeah, I think we did that before, but we've kind of updated travel time, so I'll update that.
Okay. Terrific. Any other questions for Sean before we let him go?
Saw your news about peak ridership in October. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It's yeah, it's high. It's a little faster than we thought we'd have it, but it's grabbing 1 million people. It's 1 million people. That's pretty good. That's the first time since February of 2020.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again very much, Sean. We appreciate it. Happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays. Thank you so much.
Bye,
We'll be here-
John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just say something about the legacy stops? I know that it'd probably be allowable, but I think, and it may not be as high a priority as those areas there, you have to put in a pad because it's necessary, it's
It's
required.
a new stop, right?
But I think in the long run, we do wanna have those made accessible for people. with
Oh, absolutely.
wheelchairs.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we
Absolutely.
still have to figure out we have to take the responsibility of making sure those take place.
And by the time the route goes into effect, we'll be working on our 2025 capital budget, so that'd be the time that really,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
To advocate for some sidewalks to
Right.
connect the pads
Mm.
that stops where there
Well-
are no sidewalks, like the one I'm thinking of, the one at Pheasant Hill and Owen, where it's like. You could get off the bus, there's a pad, but then what are you gonna, you're just gonna be.
Well, yeah, we'll have to
Yeah.
merge those two
Yeah.
Right.
images together.
We've already been getting quotes from Brad, who's our public works guru on this kind of stuff, on what it would take, just as a point of information. I know this, but it was when we adjusted the route to going down Owen and turning at Pheasant Hill and then going down Nichols and going across Winnequa and going up Dean, all of the non-sidewalked pieces that are on that route, which is to say the Owen piece and Pheasant Hill and Winnequa are all priority or key key areas that were identified in the approved bike head plan for the city.
It's exciting.
So that doesn't mean it's gonna happen next week or even by the time this service starts, but Brad is already put together some estimates
Yeah, so I know this one working on.
on sidewalks for all three of those, and the Owen stretch is like 300 feet. It's
Yeah,
not
it's
that
pretty
expensive.
short.
It's pretty short.
Yeah.
Nancy, and everyone, I'm sorry, I have to sign off.
Yeah,
Right.
enjoy your salad
Well, and
and
it's
your
the pot,
friends.
the pot roast that's,
The pot roast, okay, that
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
All
That
right.
too. Happy holidays, Laura. Tk you very
Happy
much, and thanks for
holidays.
taking time out with your friends
talk
here.
soon.
Bye.
I gotta go
Doug.
too. Thanks, guys.
Doug, thank you so much for patching in. I know you didn't think you were gonna be here, and we really appreciate you being here.
Well, I just wanted to check it out and I'm sorry I couldn't be there, but I'm glad I got to hear at least part of it. So thanks, guys. See ya.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, Doug.
Bye-bye.
So anyway, we're already getting quotes. Okay. So I think that, the question becomes, given what we know now about, that we know before about paratransit,
Yeah. Patrick.
on weekends. Um. Do we? And we still don't know, because he said he was gonna go and. Go back to Justin. Right?
Yeah,
Um,
for the weekends.
yeah,
I did talk to him.
no, I know, but Sean just said in terms of the cost
Oh, yeah, so he'll get his cost.
and the need. He also seemed like. Maybe there might be some wiggle room.
Yeah,
But my question is, do we need to? Propose an amendment? Once we get the figures. We need to propose an amendment to the recommendation as it stands in this. Or with this commission, assuming we can afford it. Which I think is,
we'll have to figure that out.
Yes, seems question.
There's so many things that play, I would almost feel more comfortable. Laying out a set of guidelines for us to determine. After the introduction of the 5-day service, whether. The perceived benefits of it, whether we, like there'd be a few criteria, like whether it has been expanded just by virtue of Metro. Expanding the service of its own will by a certain date, or two, by a certain date, if we've assessed. Like if we can do, I mean, there's so many surveys, but if we can actually survey people to see. Whether they're really. The 24 time a day bus service thing is aggravating people so much that the idea of. More on the weekends is going to. Drive them. Further into, anger over this issue, and I guess I'm not being very clear, but I almost.
Like, wait and see.
Yeah, I feel more comfortable saying, like, adding an amendment that says, here is the date. We will defer this decision until, and here are the criteria we will use to make a decision. Because so much of this hinges on. How it works out in practice, like I'm envisioning a scenario where we decide to go all week. And then it turns out that the buses are supposed to be once an hour in one direction. But they're always 15 minutes late and they're never on time, so the people who use them aren't happy, the people who don't use them but see them barreling down the street aren't happy. No one's happy with it, and it's occurring 7 days a week. With a benefit that at least we get the paratransit 7 days a week. But that to a large bulk of people in the community. Doesn't seem like enough of a benefit to justify the extra costs.
right,
I mean, I guess I don't have a dog in the fight because I'm not an elected official and nothing will. It doesn't really matter to me, there's no consequences, but I'd just be nervous about doing something that. Like investing further resources before we know how it's actually gonna work.
yeah,
No, I think there's some benefits to phasing this in,
Yeah,
maybe, that's what you're
yeah,
trying to say,
yeah,
do
yeah.
the Monday through Friday service first. And then,
See
once
how
we
it
get a
goes.
better idea of what's at stake for weekends, maybe adding that.
right, I mean, that's kind of the way we were looking at it from the very beginning, from a regular service standpoint. When we talked about just doing Monday through Friday, we said. No, in a sense, the best case scenario would be that there's so much interest in ridership that we have to add it on weekends,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But we weren't gonna do it now, and I
Yeah.
think that still holds true. To use a TIF term, but for. The fact that there does mean that there would be a gap of a few students for paratransit.
Yeah.
On the other hand. Thankfully, it does serve the city center. It's not like it's so far off, so it's not like people couldn't get down to Winnequa Park or or to the library or to whatever.
And compared to what's currently available on the weekend, which is 0.
Yes.
Yes,
right.
I mean,
Right,
it's
right.
preferable.
And in some
Yeah.
senses, the fact that it's not on weekends, not only I think is, as we've talked about, which is why we made the recommendation we did. You know, the fact that it's not on weekends, is a good thing in some other ways too, in terms of, excuse me. You know, the runs and walks and the bike riders and all of that on Winnicott,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Which is so,
That's the biggest challenge, I think, is wonderful.
right. So I think we stick with the recommendation the way it is.
As
and-
I'm thinking about it, there's two kind of key pieces to our recommendation.
Mhm.
The first and foremost being, we want to continue to move forward in our negotiations.
That's
with
right.
Mhm.
Madison Metro Transit and good thing, right? Absolutely, this to me doesn't affect that.
Mhm.
Like,
Right,
even if there's a corner of Monona that doesn't have weekend paratransit service, this still as a whole is a substantial improvement on our transit in our community.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think when the second question comes up about, you know, for me, I want to see what the numbers are gonna look like for that weekend service, because if I remember back to the November meeting, we had a big number for
7 days a week.
two-way, 7-day a week, right? And that this was the cost compromise. So
Yeah.
I think that
Bigger number.
Yep.
that number, I can't say, assuming it costs the same, because I don't expect it will, and that's gonna be a big decision maker for me. It's-
Yeah, and the ridership will tell us a lot about whether it's actually a good thing environmentally for the city to have. I mean, whether that's an additional benefit or it's just not. benefit.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, what came through for me is that it's a moving target. Everything he's doing is constantly
Right.
getting new
Yeah,
information
yeah, yeah.
and readjusting service, readjusting schedules, moving resources in and out, so. I don't think we can be sure of anything right now. I mean, much of this we can, but a lot of it could change.
Until it happens. And
Until we actually put it in place, we're not really gonna be sure how people are gonna like it or not.
They're not gonna service at Moline Rise, so we need that data.
Yeah,
Right, and obviously we've talked about needing to invest marketing dollars, you know,
Right.
into making sure that everybody understands the new service and how it works, knowing that that it's gonna change, right? As well, because as they would with any new service, you know,
Right.
I mean, one of the things that I have been, you know, at the last at the last city council meeting. That I said, and I, you know, and certainly this body knows, and, you know, Addie was there, to speak, thank you. Was, you know, this is not, what we recommended was not a PIP for transit, you know, and a PIP being a precise implementation plan, which is, I know very well because we deal with the planning commission all the time, you know, when a development comes through. A development comes through first to, in a pre-hearing, to say, you know. This is the kind of building we're considering, do you wanna dance, basically, is what they say to the, to the planning commission. And the planning commission weighs in on that, you know, based on zoning and what we're looking for and then all that stuff. And then they come back for a general development, what's called a general development plan, which sets the framework. And essentially what we've done with this recommendation is to set the framework. And we're saying to the city council, we'd like approval to move towards a BIP. We don't have all the details there. And we don't want to invest any more resources in terms of Monona or in terms of Metro in doing a PIP
if we can't.
if
have
we
these
can't get the
things, yeah.
GDP. I mean, the city council always has to approve the GDP before we get to a PA, you know, before we get to a PA. So it's very consistent with the way other, you know, things have operated. So do
And
we,
Just so I understand, the PIP specifically for Transit Commission is the request for proposals for bids to run our transit, right? 'Cause
no,
oh, no, so we are going to have to then come up with a specific plan with Metro that we then take back again to the council?
Well, I'm not saying that we will, I don't know, because there isn't such a
Council.
thing technically as a PIP. For transit, but I'm just
Yeah,
saying
okay,
that's the.
I get you, I get
So I was just using that as a framework for people to kind of hopefully be able to get their heads around how we normally operate when it comes to development or. For that matter, you know, Public Works is the same way, right? The broad brush with Public Works initially, like on something like South Winnequa or sidewalks on McKenna. Was to do the broad brush. Do we want to go ahead with a sidewalk on McKenna, right? And then, once the council said, yep, we're making this a priority. Then we got down into the trenches and figured out all the nitty gritty details.
It'll go back to council for the official approval of the contract, so.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, you know,
In the city,
like the
okay,
legal
that'll-
stuff and all that,
Yeah, yeah,
termination clauses, all that stuff that's in there, all that stuff that. Yeah, that'll be the one we sent to the council for the final.
got it.
So
Does the resolution have to have like a no greater than number in terms of cost, or does it have to have anything?
No, not really.
No,
There isn't anything in the resolution.
okay,
Yeah.
so in terms of budget purposes, it doesn't have to technically state a cost,
No,
okay.
it'll be in the
So,
final.
unless there are any other questions, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn, I think before we use the quorum, well, we've already lost a couple people. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Uh,
We are adjourned.
Just 1 second. Stop recording.